Bill Carroll, Cine 62 Media, and I'm working my way through my watch list for the 2024-2025 NFL Draft, and of course, the season itself that precedes it. So, I'm going to start with a player who I have jokingly said if I had a name as cool as his, I would have been a better player. But one of my favorite names for a defensive player is Caleb Lawson Curtin. That's right, Caleb Curtin. It's curtains for you, right? He's going to drop the curtain on some people. He is a big, fast safety. Comes in at 6'1". He's probably 6 feet and 5/8. About just a shade under 200, probably about 197, 194, somewhere in that range. About 196-ish pounds. But he moves well, and he plays for Elon. He is a player who showed up fairly early in the weirdness that was the pandemic era. Played in 4 games. And I think they only had a 4-game season at that point, and had 4 tackles, 2 of which came against Rhode Island in the last game of that foreshortened season. Then next year rolls around as a redshirt freshman. He's in 11 games. He ends up with 12 tackles, 11 of which were solo tackles, which is an extraordinary number. Almost all of them were solo tackles. Obviously, as you get further with line of scrimmage, it's more likely you're going to make solo tackles, but still, 11 out of 12 is very high ratio. Also had a sack, an interception, and a pass breakup. So once again, though he's playing in every game, he's not a full-time starter yet, still making a big impact. Had a huge game against Albany, had a sack and a pass breakup, and actually where I first spotted him. I wasn't watching so much for him. I was watching for that rather extraordinary Albany line that they had, which in those days had the late, great A.J. Simon, had Anton Yunkash, who is now at Arkansas, and of course, Jared Verse, who's now, Jared Verse, boy, but who's now in the NFL. But I ended up noticing Curtin a little bit. Also had played well against Delaware and had an interception, his first career interception in that game. Had 5 tackles against New Hampshire. And then, of course, the breakout year as a redshirt sophomore was last year. Second team, all FCS stats performed from the AFCA. Also, Associated Press and Phil Steele all had him as second team All-American. Was first team All-CAA Conference. Pretty much across the board. The position he plays is actually the bandit role. Once again, you've heard terms like rover. You've heard terms, sometimes even terms like angel or spur. And essentially, it's a combination of linebacker, nickelback, and free safety. But he led the team in tackles, 80 total. 54 of them were solo tackles. Once again, that's what you want. You want the majority of them to be solo tackles. Had 6.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, which is a pretty wild number for someone that plays essentially all over the secondary. Had 4 interceptions, which is 13th in the country. Also was tied for his team lead in fumbles recovered, number 21 in the country, and had 6 pass breakups. There's nothing he can't do, right? He can run in coverage with slots, tight ends, and running backs. He can come into the box and stick his face in there, and you would think he was a 225-pound linebacker the way he hits. He diagnoses things quickly. He's the kind of player I could see being asked to put on 15 pounds or 20 pounds and play essentially a similar role as someone like Jeremiah Wosu-Koromoa plays. Or stay at essentially the weight he is now and play like Jalen Ramsey plays. But he could be a star or a spur or pick a term at the next level. Or someone could say, we want you to just play traditional free safety. I think he'd be great at that. Or put on a few pounds, maybe not as many pounds, and be a traditional strong safety. He could do all of those things. That's what makes him such an exciting prospect. Once again, a player that I would be excited to see at the Senior Bowl. More likely slated for the East West Shrine game, but I could see him getting to the Senior Bowl and really making a name for himself. The other player I want to hit on is another player I get to see every once in a while in person. William&Mary is in my old stomping grounds, or near my old stomping grounds. My sister used to live in Williamsburg, and he has a brother. Well, I'll start with the player. So, Mr. Sean McElwain is a player that plays at William&Mary. He plays tight end. He has a brother named Matt, who is an offensive lineman there. He is a player that came out of high school was a National Honor Society guy. Also was in honors band. So you don't see that very often with high-level football players. Lettered in basketball and baseball as well. Had 60 tackles and 5 sacks as a defensive end. So I won't say it's a shock that he ended up playing tight end, but it certainly lets you know how much they liked his high school tight end tape. In his freshman year, 2022, played in just a couple games, had his first career catch, which is of all things a 48-yard touchdown. So that's not too shabby, and that was in the playoffs against Gardner Webb. Also was a honor roll player for his academics. Then last year, broke out, was a VASID, the Virginia Sports Information Directors All-State second team, was in 11 games, only 3 starts, but still had 22 catches for 12 yards. As a part-time player, was Rookie of the Week, had 113 games in a game against Monmouth, had 4 catches for 51 yards against Towson State. Also showed up against Richmond, just 2 catches, but for 53 yards. I'm projecting him to flirt with 500 yards this season. I'm assuming he's going to be the full-time starter at tight end. I mean, why wouldn't he be? And things you like about him. First of all, frame. I mean, he's probably about 222 pounds, and probably about 6'4" and a half. But he could put on, I would say, anywhere from 16 to 24 pounds, I would think, with ease. You can look at him, broad shoulders, and you can, fairly long arms. You can see there's a lot of room to put weight on, especially in the lower body. And I would like to see him, build up that drive train, and it would help him both as a blocker, and I think he would be even more dangerous after the catch as a runner when he can run away from some people, but not fast enough that he can just depend on that. I think being able to power through some tackles would be helpful to him. But I'm circling him. Now, he's got a year of eligibility, or potentially 2 years of eligibility left. He is only a redshirt sophomore. So I think he comes back for his redshirt junior year. I don't think he plays the year after that, but he's still on my watch list. And while it is highly unlikely that he declares for the draft, I'll be ready if he does. But for Caleb Curtin, I hope he gets to the right All-Star game. Once again, this is Bill Carroll for Zinni 60 Media, working through the watch list that I have for the players I'll be watching this year. And guess what? Not only talk about the season, but also the draft to follow. And I'll have 2 more for you tomorrow, and I will see you then.